A riot occurred between the police and protesters. It seemed that the demonstration occurred because the government bought land from the mafia. They had to evict the people who had lived there for a long time. The demonstration was led by a man named Sumit. While the demonstration was still going on, at the country leaders' meeting, the representative of Thailand presented a plan to build a condominium, and according to the news, it had been completely booked even before it was built. This was thanks to the government's policy that allowed foreigners to own property in Thailand. At the location of the demonstration, several parties were planning to heat the situation. We also see someone dressed as a police officer and someone disguised as a monk. Somewhere else, a mysterious sniper was preparing to disrupt the demonstration. Wanchai, a paramedic, came and tried to save several victims. The situation got more chaotic when real weapons were used, and not only directed at the demonstrators, but also at the police. When Wanchai saw another person who had been shot, he immediately rushed to save the man. He then called his friend Pond to help him even though there was an order to retreat. Suddenly, a car passed by, and the person inside threw a grenade that fell right behind Pond. The explosion injured him gravely. Pond was put into the ambulance, but the rioting reached the ambulance, so Wanchai was forced to run. He ran into the building area. Inside the building, he saw a man who was suddenly shot in the head. The people realized Wanchai's presence and they ran after him. While running away, Wanchai saw criminals and the police who were becoming more brutal, and because the situation was already too chaotic. Unfortunately, Wanchai, who wanted to ask for help from the authorities, had to feel a rubber shot in his chest. The situation was no less chaotic in the hospital. Victims arrived while the doctors and nurses were overwhelmed. Wanchai had regained consciousness in the hospital bed and received information that the man he had saved managed to survive. Wanchai, who was worried, asked about the condition of Pond. Unfortunately, even though Pond was still alive, he had third-degree burns and was in the ICU in critical condition. Because of this, Wanchai could be blamed if it was discovered that he was the one who broke the rules and took Pond to this dangerous place. As a responsible man, Wanchai admitted that it was his fault and took the blame. The doctor said that Pond's condition would improve, but he needed long treatment, and even though the foundation covered the treatment, his family lost the person who supported them because Pond was the backbone of the family. Because of the tragedy, Wanchai was suspended for an indefinite time. He ended up working as a food delivery man. He wanted to return to his duty as a paramedic when he saw someone injured on the road, but suddenly he remembered that his job was to work hard to support Pond's family during Pond's recovery. In an unknown casino, 2 people were tortured for the accusation of cheating while gambling. Even though the man with glasses said he didn't cheat, the man with black hair named Sin still shot him dead. He then threatened the other man to return the casino money tomorrow afternoon. Sin then scolded his partner, Bank, for being too soft in doing his job. Even though he was hard toward Bank, he had considered him as his own son. It was revealed that both were professional hitmen who accepted any job as long as the money was big. Sin then called his client that he had done his job. His client then told him that he had another job with very large pay for Sin. And after this job, with this money, Sin and Bank could disappear and live in peace without the fear of being chased by the police. Even though he looked confused because he wanted to repent, Sin finally decided to take this risky job because he had a dream of living a quiet life gardening. He then called his acquaintance to buy a plot of land. He then sent a down payment from his payment he had just received, so like it or not, he had to take this new job to pay off the rest of the payment. Sin and his men then prepared to do this job. Apparently, this job was a kidnapping mission planned by a person named Chop, a hitman who was at the same level in terms of ability as Sin. Sin himself didn't like him. Sin, who didn't agree, protested to his client, but his client said that Chop would only monitor so that this mission could run perfectly. Sin asked who the target of his kidnapping was, but his client didn't answer at all. Sin then went to the house of the director of the building company named Wichai. There was a girl with a worried look on his face who was Witch's favorite child, named Duankamol, who looked very skilled at playing the piano, even though she wasn't actually playing the piano, as it was just a record. In the middle of the party, Witch's aide, Rum, came. Wichai told him that the minister was worried because real bullet that was used in the riot the other day, so he asked Rum to make sure there wasn't any evidence that pointed to him. At the Imperial International Hospital, a nurse named Miji ordered a drink, and it was delivered by Wanchai. Just like food delivery couriers in general, Witch's workplace had certain regulations regarding delivery. Wanchai promised he would arrive shortly, and if he was late, Meiji would get a free drink. In the hospital parking lot, a white car was being escorted by two black cars. Suddenly, Chop the hitman deliberately blocked the two guard cars, and his action almost made Wanchai late, but luckily he was able to deliver the order to Meiji on time. At the same time, Sin and his gang carried out their mission after the two escort cars were blocked. He kidnapped the target in the car, who turned out to be Duankamol, Witch's favorite child who had a schedule for a checkup at the hospital. Duankamol, who was shocked and panicked because she was being pointed at with a gun, shouted and wanted to run away. A fight between her bodyguards and Sin's gang couldn't be avoided. Meiji and Wanchai saw the incident and panicked. Meiji shouted, making Sin realize that Meiji and Wanchai saw his face, so he immediately took them with him. Sin, who was in pain because he had been shot during a shootout with the bodyguard, used duct tape to cover the wound, while Chop informed him that 3 guards were on their way to intercept him because they heard Duankamol's scream. Sin and the others pretended to be medics on duty. Coincidentally, Sin was full of blood there, and Meiji, who was a nurse, was there with them. Knowing that they had escaped, Sin told Wanchai to step on the gas, leaving the guards who were confused. The guards quickly realized that they were tricked and immediately chased after the ambulance. Sin, who was feeling increasingly sick, suddenly stopped breathing. Bank panicked. He immediately told Meiji to treat Sin, but because Meiji was an intern nurse, she didn't know what to do. Wanchai helped by giving instructions to open Sin's clothes. Seeing Sin's chest bulging, indicating that his lungs were swelling, Wanchai told Meiji to pierce straight to his lung so that air could come out and Sin could breathe again. Just when they felt relieved because Sin had regained consciousness, 2 bodyguards' cars sped up to catch them. They were then stopped because of the red light, making the situation even more tense. Chop updated the information about the bodyguard cars, while Sin and Bank were preparing if they had to fight them. Chop was stopped by the police for speeding, but he reasoned that he was almost late in delivering something, and that he would be fired if he was late, so he was allowed to leave. The situation became even more chaotic, especially as there were roadblocks and red lights. They then heard the police following them. Sin told Wanchai to be faster because if the police managed to catch up with them, he would kill him and Meiji. Meanwhile, to slow down the bodyguards, Chop blocked them with his truck and shot them with the rifle he was carrying. There was only one last bodyguard car, but they had managed to track Duankamol. A shootout broke out on the street. Sin and Bank's skills allowed them to get rid of the last bodyguard's car, but unfortunately, Wanchai was shot, and they crashed into shops. Fortunately, they managed to avoid the car chase. They entered the slums to escape from the police. The sirens sounded, and they were allowed to enter the slums because the residents thought they were help sent for them. Seeing an ambulance coming in, the slum residents surrounded the area. Wanchai tried to calm them down, but the residents were too chaotic. A kid then came and asked for medicine for her sick mother while crying. Duankamol, who had been living a luxurious life and wealth, was utterly confused by all this commotion. Bank, on the other hand, couldn't bear the commotion, took out a gun, and fired to disperse the commotion. A child fell during the commotion, so Duankamol tried to help her. Wanchai asked to be released because he had helped Sin and Bank to escape the police, but Sin refused. Meanwhile, Bank was running after Duankamol, who ran into the residential area. Duankamol continued to run until she saw a human trafficker's truck. Somewhere else, there was a drug factory that smuggled their product inside corpses to be sold. The factory worked with the people from a foundation named Jack. He seemed dissatisfied with the small amount of money he just received. This man, Darley, was the head of the factory. He told Jack that the profit from selling the corpses should be enough to cover the profit from the drugs. Seeing Jack, who was just silent, Darley got annoyed and hit him with durian skin. Wanchai was trying to treat his gunshot wound. He took out bullet fragments from his stomach and Meiji covered his wound with a bandage. Sin then came and asked for help from Wanchai and Meiji to look for Duankamol. Meanwhile, Rum managed to track Duankamol. He considered Sin, Bank, Meiji, and Wanchai as a gang of kidnappers. He then reported this to Wanchai, and the rescue team was sent. The rescue team raided Darley's place. They thought that Darley was the mastermind behind the kidnapping. Seeing the rescue team fully armed, Darley, who initially wanted to fight, told them that Duankamol had indeed passed by that place. But he wasn't the one who kidnapped her. He then agreed to help them. He led them into a dark tunnel, but then they were surrounded and strafed with a gun by Darley's subordinates. After finding out that a rich kid entered his area, Darley immediately ordered his men to look for the girl. In another place, Wanchai and Meiji walked while being threatened by Sin. Sin suddenly fell because he couldn't breathe. Meiji told Wanchai not to save him. Wanchai had a dilemma between saving him or not, but in the end, he decided to use the chance to escape with Meiji. Meanwhile, Darley's men were asking local residents about their whereabouts. Soon after, Chop showed up in front of Sin. He looked disappointed because Sin let Duankamol escape. Meanwhile, Duankamol had reached another area in the slums. He then saw two teachers teaching the children and asked them for help. On the other hand, Bank, who was losing track of Duankamol, saw two people playing with glasses. He realized that the glasses belonged to Duankamol, meaning he might be close to her. Wanchai and Meiji tried to blend in with the local residents, but unfortunately, one of Darley's men recognized Meiji from the photo. They immediately chased after Wanchai and Meiji. A man helped them and hid them from Darley's men, but it turned out that the man wanted to rob them. They were forced to give away their valuables so they could hide. In a hidden place, Sumith and his men were seen preparing Molotov cocktails. It seemed there would be another demonstration to reject the development in the area. Sumith ordered his men not to let the police get inside their area. Sin was calling Bank, but Bank didn't answer the call. His client then called. Sin confirmed that he could still find Duankamol, but his client sounded angry. On the other hand, Chop also received a call from the client, but unlike Sin, the client apparently trusted Chop more to lead the mission. Based on their distrust of each other, Chop and Sin got into an argument. Meanwhile, it turned out that Duankamol was kidnapped by the one she asked for help. She was put in a truck with other kids because apparently, she was thought to be one of the kids they were going to sell who was trying to escape. On the other hand, Meiji and Wanchai wanted to borrow a phone from a stall owner. The stall owner seemed suspicious because Meiji looked too pretty to be a resident of the slums. Suddenly, the loudspeaker nearby sounded, and Darley was heard telling the residents that they were raided by some people disguised as paramedics. The stall owner somehow still gave the phone to Meiji, but as soon as Meiji reached for the phone, the woman grabbed her hand and sounded the alarm to tell Darley that Meiji and Wanchai were there. Meanwhile, Bank still couldn't find Duankamol. He then arrived at the children's trafficker's place. He then found Duankamol, who was crying and asking for help. Bank then secretly opened the back door of the car and managed to get the children out of the car, but the guards realized this and started chasing them. Wanchai and Meiji, who managed to take the phone from the stall owner, were annoyed when they found out that the cell phone didn't have a SIM card. Seeing Wanchai, who was tired, Meiji offered snacks that he stole from the stall. A group of people showed up soon after. Wanchai quickly took a stick to chase the people away. However, it turned out that the people were not there to capture them. They came to ask for medical help for Sumith. Suddenly, Darley's attacked. Amid the chaos, several smoke bombs were thrown. It was Sin and Chop who came to save them. When the situation was calmer, Sin again asked Wanchai and Meiji to look for Duankamol. He offered a reward of 300,000 baht for each person. On top of one of the buildings, Duankamol was sitting with Bang. On the other hand, Wichai was worried, knowing his beloved daughter had not yet returned. It was revealed that Wichai was the one responsible for the construction that caused the demonstration. Meanwhile, Rum found the location of Duankamol. Jack met a food seller who turned out to be a disguised surgeon and was Jack's accomplice. They were preparing to smuggle the corpse's organs. As soon as the surgeon left, several troops of Wichai led by Rum ambushed the place. Jack admitted that he was happy to reveal Darley's location. Wanchai had a plan that could save Meiji and Duankamol, but Meiji refused it because Wanchai was trying to sacrifice himself. Meiji then told him that she got a nursing job from his mother. She had a big debt, so she deliberately became a nurse so that there would be rich people who would recruit her as a personal nurse. Hearing this, Wanchai questioned many things about the things he believed in his life. While he was passionately helping people, he forgot that many people needed money to stay alive. Wanchai then said that he once endangered his friends, making them almost get killed, solely because of his desire to help people. Wanchai tried to be strong like Meiji because helping people was what made him stronger. Even though Bank was a kidnapper, he seemed nice to Duankamol. He looked after her well. He even fixed her glasses, which he found. She was surprised by Bank's good deed. She asked why he became a criminal. She told him that she had heart disease. Bank then told him that he also had a sickness. Back when he was little, his house was robbed, causing him to have a deep trauma that affected his mental state. This mental illness then affected his body, which shook him every time he remembered the things. Wanchai and Meiji started their plan. They made a commotion by blaring an ambulance siren, and when the enemies approached, Sin would drop oil to burn the invaders. Unfortunately, without them realizing it, Bank and Duankamol were caught in the riot. They were both thrown from the explosion. Wanchai immediately treated Duankamal while Sin tried to wake up Bank. According to Wanchai's plan, he immediately took Duankamal into the ambulance, but the invaders were ready to strafe the ambulance with their rifles. Fortunately, Wanchai and his friends had run through the manhole. On the opposite side of the manhole, Wanchai and the others managed to get out into the crowd of people who were demonstrating in the residential area, where many students and other residents joined in the demonstration. They immediately entered a building to catch their breath. Sin tried to find a way out while Meiji wanted them to be paid up in front. Chop, who didn't accept it, took Meiji hostage. He threatened everyone to obey his rules. Knowing that she would be given to Chop, Duankamal cried, but when she saw Chop trying to shoot Meiji, she sacrificed herself. Chop, who felt he had the upper hand, suddenly challenged Sin to a one-on-one combat. Fortunately, Sin managed to finish off Chop. Wanchai, who saw this, got angry because Sin had committed murder right in front of Duankamal. But Sin shouted at him back, saying that killing Chop was the right thing to do. Sin then came out of the building and asked Wanchai to go with Duankamal. Duankamal cried in fear, but Wanchai promised to guarantee her safety. Meanwhile, Darley was ambushed by Rum's group. To avenge his dead troops, Rum's group shot all of Darley's defenseless men. Rum then warned Darley that the police would soon invade this place and they, too, would die. Darley tried to make a deal where he would return Duankamal, but they had to lead his business alone. Rum also wanted to dismantle Darley's business, so he refused. Seeing that Darley hadn't made a decision, Rum wanted to shoot him, but Darley then offered to help hunt down Duankamal's kidnappers and help the police disperse the riot. He would help Rum finish off Sumith. On the other hand, Sumith was seen praying when he received information that Darley was helping the police to find his location. This information apparently continued to spread, not only to Sumith, but also to the ears of the Foundation chairman. Rum then gave an update on the situation to Wichai. He would help the police to secure the riot, and he would kill Duankamal's kidnappers as revenge for what they had done. The situation outside began to heat up. Several people had blended with the mass and began to prepare to cause commotion. One of the people shot a fellow protester, igniting the mass's emotions and then inciting them to fight the police back. When Wanchai and the others came out of the building, they met with a man whose child was helped by Wanchai when they first arrived at that place. The man then offered help to get them out of this dangerous place. They arrived at the refugee camp, a fairly safe place. Meiji started to help the people at the camp and slowly enjoyed the good deeds she was doing. Unfortunately, the man who took them there received information that Darley was looking for Duankamal. The man then took a photo of Duankamal. Meanwhile, Sin suspected that the man was plotting something bad behind them. The man then took Wanchai and the others through the underground tunnel. Unexpectedly, at the end of the tunnel, Darley's men were already waiting. Fortunately, Bank and Duankamal realized what happened. Sin finally found out that the man was up to no good and immediately killed the man. Somewhere else, in a luxury house, there was a virtual meeting between several officials and the Foundation chairman. The Foundation chairman reported the current situation. It turned out that the Foundation chairman was the one controlling Darley and Sumith, pitted the two against each other without being discovered, and the result was the demonstration. Sumith, who saw that the crowd was starting to disperse, decided to mobilize his group to ward off the police with Molotov bombs. As Sin and the others continued to escape from the place, his phone rang. It turned out that his client asked him to kill Duankamal if he still wanted to be paid. Meanwhile, Sumith's group disguised themselves as police and intended to attack the police from within. At the same time, several people blew up the drug factory in Sumith's territory. Sumith, who saw the explosion, immediately evacuated the people who were trapped inside. The chaos became even more intense, and Wanchai led his group to escape. He knew the exit was close, but then Sin fell because he was out of breath. Bank then helped him. Seeing the enemies were still trying to chase them, Sin asked Bank and the others to just leave. Right at that moment, the explosion above them blocked the exit. After Wanchai, Meiji, and the others regained consciousness, Wanchai saw that Sin was lying down and not breathing. He, with the knowledge he had, tried to save Sin by giving him CPR. Meiji, who had given up, saw that it was meaningless, but after seeing Wanchai, who refused to give up, she decided to help. Sin came to his senses again and breathed. After he recovered some energy, he then directed the people to follow the rat because the rat would always go for a way out, but unfortunately, the way out led them to the center of the riot. Bank fired his gun to open a way for them to escape, but Wanchai was intercepted and got separated from Meiji and Doankamol. Didn't want to give up like that. Wanchai grabbed the water gun from the police and fired it to put out the fire. This allowed him to see Meiji and Doankamol. He then rushed towards them. Unfortunately, several fake police managed to catch up and take Doankamol. Wanchai and Meiji were almost shot, but Sin shot the fake police from behind to save them. Wanchai and Meiji were thrown thanks to the explosion. Meanwhile, near the exit, Bang tried to open the padlock with stones, but before they had time to leave, a group of bikers shot at them. The door was forced to be closed before Meiji managed to enter. Meiji, who had resigned her fate, locked the door back to protect the door so that no troops would follow. On the other side of the door, Wanchai, Bank, Sin, and Doankamol met Jack, who was guarding the ambulance. He recognized them as the people Darlie was looking for. Soon, Darlie showed up with his troops. Sin quickly fired his gun at Darlie. Seeing a chance, Wanchai took Doankamol and escaped from there. Meanwhile, knowing he wouldn't be able to leave the place alive, Sin gave the address of the land he brought to Bank. Bank had no other choice but to leave Sin there and run with Wanchai and Doankamol. Wanchai was chased by Darlie, but with his quick thinking, Wanchai managed to escape the chase. However, Darlie quickly chased after them again. Without thinking twice, Wanchai stepped on the gas and passed the people who were blocking him. Sin managed to trap Darlie's men into thinking that they had cornered Doankamol, but when they were about to check it, Sin shot at them. Meanwhile, thinking they had managed to escape the riot, Wanchai and the others were stopped by Rum, who then took them with his car. Doankamol felt something strange when Rum took an unfamiliar road. It was then revealed that Rum actually wanted to kidnap Doankamol and take the gift from Sin's hands. Sin then told Rum that the job was cancelled and he was asked to kill Doankamol. Rum, who didn't believe it, then showed that Bank was being threatened with a gun. Sin begged for Bank to be let go and tried to convince Rum that the job had indeed been cancelled. Not satisfied with this answer, Rum shot Bank dead. Sin couldn't do anything when the person he considered his son had died. Rum then called Wichai, saying that they had not found Doankamol. After the call, he asked Sin where they should take Doankamol to get a reward. Sin then looked at Wanchai and said that whatever happened, Doankamol had to be returned to her father. The shootout happened again, which this time caused Sin to die. Rum, who was injured in the neck, was about to finish off Wanchai when suddenly, the door opened and Rum was shot by a group of people. It turned out that the leader of the group was the person who was rescued by Wanchai in the riot at the beginning of the movie. Wanchai couldn't believe that his good deed had saved him from death. Wanchai and Doankamol then left the place with Rum's car. On the other hand, Meiji was saved by the people she saved before. The woman brought the people from the refugee camp to make barricades to protect Meiji. The next day, there was a mass cleanup after the demonstration subsided. Many volunteers cleaned the area. The news reported that the government had cancelled the contract for construction carried out by Wichai and the land was returned to the public. At the hospital, Doankamol received a video call from Meiji, who had officially become a paramedic and was on duty with Wanchai.